trying to build computers using living neurons.
That's like Star Trek.
It doesn't matter if it's a living matter or dead matter. The consciousness could run on anything. Some substance can be a drug, another one looks the same and can be poisons. Generative AI, we believe that neurons will be better. All the cost of AI is mainly due to the cost of energy. So if we can save that 1 million times, that will be huge revolution.
This is the future of how we can solve for that energy problem.
If you would like to reproduce the workings of the human brain in digital, then you would need a small nuclear plant. What was science fiction in the past becomes reality later. Elon Musk would be great, of course, but yes, if he would found our project, it would be amazing.
Welcome to another episode of CX Talks. Today, no discussion goes without mentioning AI. What's beyond AI? We have spent decades building smarter computers. But what if the next leap isn't a better chip, but a living brain grown in a lab? Someone said, we don't simulate the brain, we grow it. And that's the vision Dr. Ewelina Kurtys is helping bring to life at FinalSpark. Welcome, Dr. Ewelina. Welcome to today's show.
Hello, happy to be here.
So in today's episode, we will explore something amazing. It sits at the intersection of neuroscience, biotechnology, and artificial intelligence. We'll also get into ethics, the energy crisis, and whether this intelligence can ever be alive. So let's dive in. So Dr. Ulina, before we start, would you mind sharing a little bit of your background, with our audience?
Sure. So I'm Ewelina Kurtys. I have PhD in neuroscience. And after I left academia, I started to work on entrepreneurship. And I work currently with FinalSpark as a strategic advisor. And FinalSpark is trying to build computers using living neurons. So as you said in your introduction, this is a really great combination of neuroscience and engineering. And it's a very fascinating field. The reason why we try to build these computers is because living neurons are 1 million times more energy efficient than digital hardware. So we want to solve the problem that AI is using exponentially increasing amount of energy. So that's the main rationale for this project.
We will get into details of all of this, because I'm very, very curious about this whole technology. But as you were growing up, what fascinated you about the brain or neuroscience? How did you get there?
I think it came natural. I was always curious the most about the questions related to nature and let's say natural science, or like biology, chemistry. I was just always curious why something is some substance can be a drug, another one looks the same and can be poison. So that was something really fascinating. Or how things can dissolve in the acid. How is possible that you have something and after it's gone in the liquid? So these were just things which were fascinating for me. I don't know why. It just came. And I always wanted to be a scientist since I heard that there is such a job like a scientist. I went in that direction of biomedical research. So I spent some time in the lab and also as a master student. And after someone gave me good advice, because I knew for sure I want to do biomedical field, but I was not sure which topic. And someone told me you should look what is the most fascinating topic in your opinion from all the human body, let's say, if we talk about biomedical research. And then I realized that it's a brain. So I focused on searching for projects for future only on neuroscience. So that's how I found this direction.
That's fantastic. So to ground our listeners, right? Because this is such a new topic, for many of our listeners. In very simple terms, let's first explain to them, what is this whole area of biocomputing? What does it mean?
So biocomputing is a new field. So you can sometimes find other terms in the internet, such as wetware computing or organoid intelligence. But here we talk about trying to make computers where the processor, the heart, where there is a processing of the information is built from living neurons. And the way how we do this is we have real human neurons in the lab. So the same as we have in our brains, we know for sure they work because the reason why we talk is because our neurons can process information, and you can have today, it's very standard in many labs, you have living neurons or other type of human cells for research, but usually it's for biomedical research, and we use them for different purpose, so we try to program them. So what we do, we put a little blob of neurons on the electrodes, and we try to send them signals, electrical signals, and we measure response all the time in real time, and we try to make sense of this on this input.
That's like, when I was growing up, that's like Star Trek.
Yes, possibly, because a lot of development in technology is often inspired by science fiction books or movies. So what was science fiction in the past becomes reality later.
So you actually use human brain cells on the electrodes. Okay, I'm just curious, and where do you get these brain cells from? Like, can you take my brain cells, and then put them on electrodes?
No, we get them from human skin, but actually we don't do the process ourselves. You can buy actually stem cells, which are derived from human skin. They are commercially available. And from the stem cells, you can produce any cells you want, so including neurons. So theoretically, you could give your skin cells, but we never do this. People come to us very often. They want to donate the cells, but we don't accept because we buy these commercial stem cells to make it easier. Yes, and today you can get anything you want from stem cells from human skin. So that makes research much more.
You've talked about the human neurons
Yes,
are 1,000,000 times more energy efficient.
yes.
Now, is that a theoretical estimate, or is it something which is proven mathematically and also in the labs?
And what do you mean? We do this in the lab practically. So mathematics is here.
No, I mean the 1,000,000 times more energy efficient.
Yes, so these are estimations actually, yeah, you could say both on the observation and on the theoretical calculations, because we can see with practice that we can run on one banana for all day. And if you would like to reproduce the workings of the human brain in digital, then you would need a small nuclear plant. And generally we can solve a lot of problems which you can ask ChatGPT, and you can compare how much time ChatGPT and energy it costs to answer for ChatGPT and human brain. So there are a lot of ways to make this estimation. And there are also some theoretical assumptions. People try to calculate how many synapses we have in the brain, and then how many connections we can have, in the digital neurons, and how you compare with that. So yes, so they are still, of course, all theoretical, because the computer with living neurons doesn't exist yet, because we cannot program neurons today. We're just trying to do this. But there are a lot of things based on the human brain, which gives us idea about the biocomputer and also its energy efficiency.
And that is a very relevant topic. There's a growing concern around energy. What about the data centers? Who will power the data centers? I'm sure you must be getting calls, from OpenAI, or Meta, and then others, because what seems like is this is the future of how we can solve for that energy problem and the computing that is required, computing power that is required.
Well, at the moment, I think this is still early stage. So we are sure that this will be huge revolution. But usually startups are taking the biggest risk, and when things are working, then everyone is taking over, of course. So this is still at the stage when there is high risk, because we are away around. We estimate it will take us 10 years to build the computer. We are also searching for investment. So with the investment, it can be faster. So I think for big players like Meta, you mentioned, I think for them it's maybe too early to think about this. I think they think in shorter term, and they put more effort in the existing technologies just to be sure for next year and next 3 years. And I think it's fine. It's absolutely fine, because when you run such a huge company, you have to be really sure 100% that everything will work. So you can use new technology once it's approved. So I think it's still too early. But well, I know that OpenAI, for example, was interested in some brain-inspired computing, but more on the still on the dead hardware, let's say, the digital hardware, not on the living neurons. This is very early, because so far we managed to store 1 bit of information. So we still have a lot of work to do to make it work. But once it works, it will be huge revolution, because actually all the cost of AI is mainly due to the cost of energy. So if we can save that 1 million times, that will be huge revolution.
Absolutely, it will be. It's a big fundamental shift.
Yes.
And I would say because today, as many of the futurists, sit down and think AI is the current revolution. What next? And until we start investing in what next today, that won't happen. So I genuinely hope that our podcast reaches the right investors, so they can reach out, as you guys are trying to raise money, for your next level of growth.
Yes, absolutely. So we talked to investors about 50 million Swiss francs, which is around $50 million. And that's what we need. We believe we need this for the next 10 years. And that will help us to keep the timeline because actually 10 years is very short term timeline to build a living computer. But with the investment, we think it's possible. And also with the fact that artificial intelligence, digital, is also developing very fast. So a lot of things can be accelerated also in the research.
I would like to see it faster. Let's get a bit under the hood, right? As I research about you, you use neurospheres, which is about 10,000 neurons each. Okay.
Yes, you are
I know
very
you touched upon a little bit about how you connect electrodes. Can you help our viewers understand what are these neurospheres? How are you encoding data in these neural clusters and how it's working?
Yes, neurons naturally form connections between each other. So when we put a bunch of neurons in the liquid, um, they will naturally connect to each other. So neurosphere is forming very naturally, and it's very messy. We did pictures under electron microscopy, which can be found somewhere in our website, and it's you can see how messy is the connections between the neurons. And this is just pure nature because the same is in our brain. The connections are many and they don't have regular structure in the same way as digital circuits. So that's one thing. And then when we have these neurospheres, we can store them for very long time. And when we need them, we can put them on electrodes. So this is very quick, efficient process. You just pick up and put them on the electrodes, usually on 8 electrodes. And on our website, finalspark.com, there is section live where you can see actually how it looks. The electrodes with the neurons. Neurons you cannot see with the naked eye because they are very small and semi-transparent, but you can see the whole setup because indeed for us it's very important to be transparent because people find this project very abstract, very crazy. So we like to show how it really looks. So that's why we have this live view
And
from
it's
our
it's
lab.
very real, right? It's very real. It's a living cell. So talk to us a bit about the sleep cycle because that just was quite fascinating, that how you're treating them pretty much like living beings, that they need rest.
Oh yes, yes. This is actually something we are still exploring, but we are aware of the fact that you cannot put too much current, for example, because of course you can kill the neurons, and then you have to replace them with another neurosphere, with another bunch of neurons. So you also have to, yes, indeed, neurons in our brain need to rest. But to be honest, at the moment when we do our experiments, we don't yet take this into the account. So we don't try to make a circadian rhythm for them because also it's connected to many other factors. But yes, I think we have to take this into account that neurons is a biological tissue. So maybe the computers will need to have some break, or maybe we will have different modules. And when the one will be resting, other will be working.
Wow, that's what the true human plus AI working together model looks
Yes.
like for the future. And while you have developed this, you have also opened up access to other researchers and other companies also, who would want to experiment. Talk to us a bit about your cloud access model, the neuro platform.
So this is funny because when we had during the COVID, our researchers developed this remote system, so you can access the lab and do experiments remotely because, of course, they wanted to continue and it was a bit difficult. And later, we decided to use this opportunity and to invite researchers from all over the world to collaborate with us. So from 34 universities which made proposal, we gave them free access. So that hopefully we are actually always searching for the ideas which we didn't think about. This is very important in innovation in R&D to have influx of ideas, and so that we find valuable and stimulating. But what is also very interesting, we not only get universities, but we also started to have first commercial clients, so people who pay us to get access. So they are big companies, small startups, or individuals who are fascinated and want to play with neurons. So of course, at the moment, we cannot use them as computational power like ChatGPT, but we rather can use them for fundamental research in how neurons process information. So you can send them signals, you can receive the response, you can try to do some data science. So it's very technical, very heavy in technical, but yes, there are a lot of interest and we are very happy with this. So you can basically access the lab through your internet browser, writing code in Python. You set up experiments, you collect data, you do everything automatically without ever coming to the lab in Switzerland. So this is very impressive. And it's generally the direction in science because more and more things become automated for many reasons, sometimes for safety. In our case, actually, this automation helps in high throughput because it's so difficult, nobody really knows how to program neurons. So we do a lot of trial and error. So that means we have to run a lot of experiments. And the fact that we can run them 24 hours per day, 7 days per week is very helpful because then we have terabytes of data.
What, you guys have almost 20 terabytes of data right now?
Yes, definitely. So actually, this is huge amount, and we are also thinking it's not ready yet, but we were even thinking to make them available for some part of the data because there are so many, and some people cannot afford access because it's might be too expensive. It costs $1,000, the cheapest for 1 month. But of course, our lab, we still need people, and it's still very small scale, so that's why it has to cost, unfortunately. But if someone cannot afford, they can still use maybe this data set. So we are thinking about this.
So, Dr. Ewelina, talk to me a bit about a specific experiment that you guys have done recently, where the neuron has actually processed the data. And in very simple terms, because I'm just want to have our viewers really understand and comprehend, what you have been able to achieve.
So you can look at how humans learn or animals. There are some principles which you can put into a diagram, and it's very universal. And you could try to apply the same thing in the living cells, single cells. And one of the very prominent example of how we learn is by getting the feedback from the environment. So we do action, we get feedback, and then we adjust the action, hopefully, to increase the desired outcome. So this is feedback loop, which is generally a mechanism which is very common in nature. So in living neurons, you can do this in such a way that we stimulate them, then we measure the response, and if the response is as we wanted, we give them dopamine. If it's not, we give nothing because dopamine is neurotransmitter, which is considered to be a reward in our circuits. So that's one of the very popular experiments we play with because actually I haven't said that, but there is not only electrodes in our system, we can also release chemicals in the system. So far we can do dopamine and serotonin just by switching on the light. They are chemically released. So you put a short impulse on UV light and you can release dopamine to the medium instantly. So it's really, really quick because the same in the brain, these things really happen in milliseconds. So we can do this kind of mechanism. So we stimulate them, the dopamine or not, and then again, and such a feedback loop. That's a very popular example of what we do.
Let's get into a bit of an ethics philosophy, kind of discussion, because I'm sure you get questioned about this a lot, correct?
Yes.
First is, when do you think these neuron clusters will start resembling thinking? And I know you've been very vocal about saying you do not support anthropomorphizing, biocomputers. So talk to us a bit about that, because those are philosophical questions, which are in everyone's mind. Even with the normal AI chips, I'm sure with bio AI chips, that whole debate will further go up.
Yes, you're right. Many people asked us for this, and this is very important question for philosophers. And we are not very, we are scientists and engineers, so we are not very competent to answer. So we reach out to real philosophers to help us, and there will be maybe some study done big study on biocomputing, but it's not funded yet, so we cannot release yet. But it will be totally independent of us, of course. So we hope philosophers will help. But yes, there are questions. I think there is a lot of anthropomorphizing. So, if things, just because we use living cells, then people associate this with human traits, which is, I think, normal. So many people ask about consciousness, and yes, I think it's still important question for philosophers. Also, there is very active debate about the digital AI. Even if it's just digital, many philosophers believe that it can be conscious as well, because it doesn't matter if it's living matter or dead matter. The consciousness could run on anything. So, there is a lot of discussion. I think it's really interesting. I am sure that we are far away from this level, although some people argue that LLMs, which we have now, that they have some emergent properties, but I'm really not an expert on that. So yeah, I think it's interesting discussion, and we should definitely take this into account. And, we want that the work which we do is accepted by society. So, of course, if there is any recommendation which we will get from philosophers or on what we should do, then, of course, we will follow for sure. But at this stage, of course, it's for sure beyond question, because we have just small amount of cells just for experiments. But yes, once they can run ChatGPT, maybe, who knows, we can consider if they are thinking also, if they have some kind of consciousness.
As you're doing experiments, are they able to retain
Memory. So we were able to store 1 bit of information.
Oh, you were. Okay.
Yes, 1 bit. And also, what is characteristic is just that in neurons, in contrary to computers, memory and processing is in the same place. So this also is one of the reasons why it saves energy, because in a computer, usually you have some distance between memory and processing. So in neurons, it's everything together. Although we don't expect to replace all digital, but in some tasks, for example, generative AI, we believe that neurons will be better.
Okay. And any other use cases you think in any specific industries?
For now, we believe in generative AI because solving complex problems is something what human brain is doing very efficiently, in contrary to computers. And also the speed might not be the most important here, because if you can get the task ready, then maybe it doesn't matter so much if it's 3 minutes or a bit longer. So we believe in generative AI, but of course it's long term. So, it's just assumption.
How many such companies are there, today, which are doing it? How do you see your competitive landscape in terms of both competition and maybe collaboration too? Because it's so early right now. I think more than competition, you need more collaboration.
Yes, we have collaborations from all over the world with our users who access the lab remotely, but we have also competitors, and we are happy with that, because this idea is so crazy and new that we are happy that if other people come up with that maybe it's not so crazy. Otherwise, if we would be the only one, that maybe it would be suspicious. So we have competitor in Australia, which is called Cortical Labs. They have the same objective, a little bit different assumptions on the technical side, but there are a small difference, but in general, we want to do the same thing, computer using living neurons. And there is also Koniku in the US. They at least started with this idea after they moved a bit to different application, but they started as a biocomputing company.
Okay. So there is, basically ecosystems coming up pretty much in every single continent slowly, to see how things can be done at a much faster scale, correct?
Yes. I think it's all, the biggest barrier is always the people. So the more people work on the problem, the faster can be solved. So this is generally issue. So we hope with investment, we actually want to increase the amount of people who will work on this problem.
And is there investment flowing into this space right now, as you see your competitors? Or have they raised money, recently?
Yes. Actually, Cortical Labs, yes, they raised some money. And Koniku, maybe, yes, also. Yes.
Okay. Okay. And so far, you guys have been very privately funded.
Yes. We are funded by the founders, Fred Jordan and Martin Kuter. These are two Swiss entrepreneurs who started the company.
So I know, we talked about 10 years. 10 years is a very long time. If you were to cut it down into, hey, where do you think you see the company in 2 years? And of course, provided all the funding and everything happens in 2 years and then in 5 years, what would those milestones look like?
Yes, definitely. We have short-term milestones. The next one on which we're working, which might take us 2 to 3 years with investment, is learning in vitro. So that means we would like to crack the case, which is very difficult since many years, how to do learning in vitro. So we know that we learn by changing the connections in our brain between neurons, and this is the basic of neuroplasticity and learning. And we would like to be able to reproduce the same in the lab by doing some simple tasks. For example, classification, which is one of the simplest idea for neural networks, maybe to recognize some images or some other inputs. So that's learning in vitro. The next milestone, which will take another maybe 3 years, is advanced algorithm, because we would like to be able to match the performance of silicon computer. And the last milestone, which will take maybe 3, maybe 4 years, is scaling, which is also very difficult because we want to build huge structures of neurons, maybe even 100 meters long. And then there will be a lot of challenges on how to keep them alive. Because in the body, you have the system of vessels, blood vessels, so every cell in the body gets oxygen and nutrients, but in the lab it's challenging. So we have to actually develop some artificial vascularization, maybe, or something else, to make sure that all neurons will get feeding and everything, what they need. So that will be also a huge challenge. And we envision the end goal will be bioserver. So this will be central computer, which you will be able to access like today, cloud computing. People will be able to plug in. And what is important, we would like that there is no difference for the end user. So basically you connect and you, for example, can use ChatGPT, which will be just cheaper to use, but you shouldn't feel any difference. That's our dream, of course. And that's
And
our...
maybe by then, Neuralink will be much more mainstream,
Mhm.
and it'll become a lot more easier because then neurons are talking to neurons.
Yes, actually, what Neuralink is doing is a little bit different, because they try to change and interact with the real human brain by, for example, putting electrodes. So that's a bit different, but yes, there are a lot of similarities, and the knowledge from our work can be also supportive for such a project like a Neuralink.
I think if I hope my podcast gets to Elon, and then he would be the best investor for you guys.
We wouldn't mind. It would be fantastic. If you
Absolutely.
have his phone number, you can give me.
You are very passionate about this. I'm sure your other team members are.
Yes.
And as you grow the team, how easy it is to recruit people, for such a, is it mostly just because people are passionate, they just reach out themselves and say, hey, I want to be associated with this project?
Yes, many people. I think at this stage is quite easy because we have much more demand than we can accept. Actually, now we don't hire anyone since long. Last time we hired a biologist. She's already with us 2 years, I think, more than 2 years. So it's very slow because of the limited resources. So it's not difficult. If we have money to, I think it would be quite easy to find someone really fascinated, because there are people who write to us from all over the world that they want to take part in the project. I think in the future, when we get investment and we will have to hire few people at the same time, it will be more time consuming, of course, but I'm sure it will be possible to find people, because many people are interested, and I believe there is enough people. This is also generally emerging field, I would say, where you have to combine the knowledge from neuroscience and engineering. So there are more and more people trained also in that. So for example, next to our lab, there is EPFL, one of the universities in Switzerland, and they have special program for master students, which is called NeuroX. And they produce these fantastic people who can code very well, who can build hardware, and they also understand neuroscience, which is fantastic. So I think there are more and more people like that. So I believe that there are enough people to work on the project. Yes, definitely. But of course, it's not such a huge market like for digital. But digital, there are much more jobs.
And then you have always maintained a very strong ethos on choose with your heart, so that's been part of your core
Yes, it's
messaging
extremely
always.
important. Yes, to choose people, especially at the early stage when you have a small team. The quality is important, because you cannot afford, like, in big companies, they say that 40% of managers are losing money. I've heard that somewhere on the internet. So of course, startup cannot afford this. Yes. So you have to choose every person carefully. But actually, this is advantage of also working on such a project, because usually you find nice people working in R&D on all these crazy projects, because you have to be a little
Given
bit
so much
passionate.
uncertainty, given so much uncertainty, long lead time, how do you personally stay grounded and motivated? Aren't there days, when you're like, my God, this is gonna, I don't know where this is going?
Well, I generally enjoy what I do, so then it's not a problem. And I think generally when you are a scientist or when you work on long-term projects, it's much better. You have to enjoy this. Just doing this has to be a pleasure, because if you think about end goal, it might never happen. So that's, I think, not a good motivation also for a scientist. If you want to, do science because of some papers or maybe Nobel Prize, then I think you never. I think it's harder because you have to enjoy daily on the daily basis.
So, which brings us to a quick rapid fire round. So, if not neuron computing, what career path would you have chosen?
I'm sure I would do some AI, some commercial applications of AI, and something around AI for sure. Maybe other unconventional computing, maybe traditional digital.
And then, so what's your favorite sci-fi movie or book?
Oh my God, I was reading a lot Stanisław Lem, writer, Polish writer. He wrote a lot of nice books. I was reading as a child. But actually now when I'm adult, I don't like so much science fiction. It's boring. Actually, it's much more exciting for me to do science, but to look at how people imagine, you know, all this, science fiction is not really interesting for me. Doing is
So, is it any other genre which you like to watch?
Well, I like a lot the movies or books which are based on real events, and especially movies. Yes, stories. For example, of entrepreneurs, I like. It's always nice and inspiring. Of some people who did something great. That's maybe my
So, who
favorite.
would be your dream collaborator? And if you were to like say, hey, I want this person to be part of this project,
Oh my
living,
God.
dead, yeah.
So as you mentioned, maybe Elon Musk would be great, of course, but I think it's not very original because probably many people want to work with him. But yes, if he would found our project, would be amazing. I think yes, that would be really great if some accomplished person would support this new type of computing.
And I sure hope he does,
Hmm.
or someone similar. Which brings us to the end of our conversation, Dr. Ewelina. It has been eye opening for me. I'm sure for a lot of our listeners. So as we say, uh, close this section out, what's one idea you want our listeners to walk away with?
That FinalSpark is building computers from living neurons, which are 1 million times more energy efficient than digital hardware. And if you want to know more, please check our website, finalspark.com, and send us questions if you have any.
Thank you so much, for this amazing conversation.
Thank you.
To our listeners, if you have enjoyed this, hit subscribe and do not forget to visit the website www.finalspark.com. Dr. Ulina is also on LinkedIn. You can reach
Yes.
out to her there with any questions, ideas, thoughts, and then all the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.